Peru, Sweden, and Norway. So it's a good way to keep the discussion going and keep being informed about each other's work. And this poster by Stina Wirfeldt is it's a remake of John Baldessari's All the Trucks at, what is it, Santa Monica Boulevard or something. Only she did that same trip on Google Earth and collected images of trucks that Google Earth had picked up and made a poster that was for free. And I think this poster might be available soon at Torpedo. And also during that, in conjunction with this show, we did a screening with artists whose work was exploring the themes of appropriation and modification and reinterpretation too. And the participants in that show was Christopher Busch from Norge, and Michael Robinson from the US, Daniel Itok, whose video I'm going to show now. Daniel Itok is also the brain behind the brilliant Indexhibit. And it was Alejandra Salinas and Aaron Bergman, and Leroy Stevens from the US, and Steve Reinke from Canada. And also a tip is to visit his website. He's really generous with uploading his videos. And that website is called myrectumisnotagrave.com. And also Lisa Williamson and Maria Lusitano were in the screening. And you might have seen her video at Kunstnernes Hus. It was the same video that we had in the screening. And this screening was at the CCA in Glasgow. Now this video is also a remake of Schlemminger's film from the 20s, I think. Only Daniel Itok did that same thing with all the transitions available in the software PowerPoint. And Schlemminger, of course, did the animation by hand. And if you want to ask questions, you can do it during whenever. Okay, I think you get the picture. And so next thing I want to talk about is a show I did at UKS, which was called Image Ridden. And now finally a quote that I read, or that I came across in an interview in New York from Morton Feldman came to play. And that quote was, he's a US composer, or he was. And his quote was, he was interviewed about method and his ways of working. And he said that if I knew what I was doing, I would go silently down to the basement and hang myself. And so I found a way, as I said, to use that quote in a video that was part of the show. And so, as usual, first I wrote the text, called it My Girl. And this text is about method and collaboration again. And it's a story of a painter who is working in her studio near Max Ernst's old house in Sedona in Arizona. And a girl approaches her and she suggests that they collaborate on some paintings. And the painter says, no thank you. And instead, the girl reads her texts while she is painting. And then they discuss what they read. The voice in this video is Leroy Stevens, who's a friend of mine. And I had been looking for an opportunity to use his voice in a video for years because he has such a goofy voice, very kind of girlish. And I think it suited the protagonist, who is actually a girl, well to have his voice.
I was watching my favorite video while thinking about how to paint a pile of snow when a girl approached me. She said, "I won't show you my face. Do you want to make a video together?" I told her I was painting. We started collaborating on some paintings. I painted, and she was my sidekick. More of that yellow, girl. Cut that word out and paste it onto the landscape. Don't get busy analyzing. Dreams are good to analyze if you want to have fun with your cognitive skills. My girl said Freud sucks 10 times worse than Danny DeVito, and I believed her. Now that you were my coach and sidekick, I told her, I suggest you read me books while I work. She started reading J.T. Leroy's Sarah. It was disturbing and gave me middle-class guilt. Not much to do with that. When she got tired of reading, she put on an MP3 with some old composer talking about method. If I knew what I was doing, he said, I'd go quietly down to the basement and hang myself. My studio had a window that was facing the right direction. It was always sunny in the morning until lunch. I was painting what I was thinking. We both felt very happy. I tried to concentrate on nothing but traces of thoughts in my brain. The foggier the notions, the better. It didn't matter who we were, or how real we were. It didn't even matter who was who. It felt like nothing could ruin our situation, and that made us feel strong. I didn't tell you my studio is near Max Ernst's old house in Arizona. It's amazing how the sun hits the ground there, and I think about Max a lot while working in this environment. Freud's work with free association, dream analysis, and the hidden unconscious was of the utmost importance to the surrealists in developing methods to liberate imagination, Wikipedia said. And it continued. They embraced idiosyncrasy while rejecting the idea of underlying badness or darkness of the mind. What do you think? I asked my girl and myself. I don't know. I always ask what other people think. It's stupid, really. I should pay more attention to what I think. As I said, Freud sucks 10 times worse than Danny DeVito, she said. And then she said something that's been lingering in my mind ever since. Watching him catch tiny prey is less interesting than watching a worse, less behaved thinker miss what she's after. I thought that was the most enigmatic thing to say.
Okay, so that's the poster for the show, a silk screen. And this is what the show looked like from one angle. And this is, I put this in because I'm going to talk about the row of small paintings. To begin with this is called Sail, and it's just a person whose t-shirt has become his sail. And these are all really small, they're like 45, 30 or something. And these, all the small ones are oil on canvas on plywood. So they're heavy and object-like, which was important. And I just stretched a whole lot of these this size canvases and started painting in a very associative way and aiming at just making a kind of conversation between the different paintings. This is called split core, and it says splitted kjerne somehow on the two rings. Uh-oh, it's cut. And some of these paintings still had the much favored motif of a ripped paper or a note in them. This is called Sunset Geometry Rip. And I think these paintings are really visibly influenced by my old inspirations of Magritte and Ernst and Gusten. This is called Return. It's kind of a way back home to the blue square. These are just cones trying to get to know each other. And this, I think, I'm quite sure, it's called I Hope It Isn't You. I know it isn't me and I hope it isn't you. It was an idea, again, of a kind of abstract portrait, or a portrait not having a face, just hair. And this, I mean, the colors here are kind of off, but you have to bear with it. This was made at the end because I needed a more up color to make the rest stand out, because it was all blue and dark red and brown and things. So this was made at the end, and it's called Compulsive Tanners. And this was made just squeezing the canvas towards the palette, and then painting from that, just to get a very, very simple way of starting. I think someone asked me if I knew about Nina Ros, the Swedish-Finnish painter, well, during the show, and she'd been my teacher, so I think I might have been a little inspired by her too. And this is what made the poster. This is not as loose as the others. This is more about method, about the impossibility of making a fire without småved. What's it called? Little pieces of wood. So it's a method that won't work. And this is called The Value of the Holdings. And I really like that title because it's like the bag with the colors and information in it from earlier on. This is looking at shapes and colors as the capital of the artists, kind of. And then I tried to make, or I did make, 2 sculptures from these 2 last paintings. So this is that painting becoming a sculpture plus something. And that's The Value of the Holdings becoming a sculpture of leather and t-shirts hanging from the roof at the UKS. And then there's a diptych. I'm gonna have to show you 2 at the same time. These 2 belong together. And they're kind of the title track of the show, because they're called Image Ridden Brown and Image Ridden Blonde. And that too is somehow laconic and humoristic take on being very influenced by what you read and see, that becoming your facial features. These are bigger, they're 110 times 80. And these are 2 photograms from the same show that are probably the works that are more, to the bigger extent, in influencing what I do now. They're 2. The shapes derive from just putting a ripped out page from a newspaper and a piece of painting on paper onto the paper in the darkroom, and using different color values in the darkroom. And I was really amazed about how sculptural that looked, and how painting-like it was to make it, like the process, how much that resembled painting, because it's very out of control. You can't really, it's hard to know what it's going to look like, and it's a lot about just losing control over it. And also just to be able to do photography without camera, I found to be very interesting. And after having made that video, My Girl, about someone who was living in Sedona, Arizona, and painting, me and 3 fellow artist friends, Christopher Busch and Anna Sandblom and Therese Merle, decided to go to Arizona and work there. But when we got there, the cultural climate apparently had changed quite a lot, so it was really unappealing to stay there, and very cheesy and very new agey. So we went to the northern part of Arizona instead, and that was too expensive, so we capitulated to the desert of California, where we found a house to work in, and that was the house. And that garage was my studio. And now comes the foggier part of the talk, because this is new work that I don't know what I'm doing with, but I decided to show it anyways, just a few of them. And this is Teresa taking a walk in the area. So what I was doing there was to just start out from a lot of... I just, again, had papers to paint on, and had gouache painting and aquarelle painting, and was assembling stuff from around the house, like palm leaves and bits of wood and sand and things, and started making prints and painting, and it was all done very playfully and with no clear ideas to begin with. And this is what some of them look like, and I was very surprised by the look of these, because they look so rustique and so 70s or 80s, and very different from what I've been looking at and been making. But the whole idea was kind of followed though, because that was to just go somewhere, go to a desired place and see how that would influence the work. And I made all these under the name of Ancient Trail, which is one of the addresses that we lived at during the trip, and which also is a title that appeals to me on a lyrical level, I think. There's a bit of wood carving and printing and just formal play, really, and it's very much about colors. I remember when the first day we got there, the others read what's it called? Horoscope? Star signs readings aloud, and they said about my sign that you are really into colors. So I thought, okay, and I decided to just go for it because it was right. I just hadn't really thought about it that way, because I usually don't read that.
How long did you stay there?
2 months.
Yeah.
Yep. I think these are kind of stoner paintings in a way. And also, I like to think about them as being site-specific, although they're not there, they're here. But I could not have made these here. They're very influenced by the landscape around. And I also made just a few sketches for new photograms there. These are not to be considered finished work at all. But they also are prints of parts of a palm and flowers and newspapers. I think when I'm going to show these, I'm going to make some kind of sculptural element to the paintings. I'm thinking something in terms of something with carpet. I don't know. Use a carpet for something. And then I'm going to show you, that's another thing I'm working on. These are stills from a video that I'm working on now, and the video is called Writing Salt, and it's a story about a writer who is writing a text called Salt, and it's mostly about how she gets distracted and what she gets distracted by. I don't want to show clips, just some still images. So it goes like she gets distracted by shapes, like words becoming shapes, and also it's about her method. Like she writes a rough edit, she kicks it around for a while, she sees what else would fit in, and then she writes that, and then she starts thinking about what the picture of a mountain would look on a t-shirt, and she gets distracted. And these are some other images from that same thing, like her text becoming pictures, and what's it called, signs in language, like the comma sign, becoming a sculpture with a insane kind of a butt plug image I found online. It's a foxtail butt plug. And then it goes that after being distracted by all this, she goes back to work, she reads the text that's kind of hard to read because it's just letters, and she takes a note that's very abstract, and then she writes the text salt. And that text is going to be a poem, but I won't show that too because I'm writing it now. And that video too is going to be, I think, even more about the dynamics of text and image together, like how they work together or don't work together. Using even more actual text and letters. And that's a way, I think, to look at language as images. And so the next and the last thing I want to talk about is it's a new photogram project that I'm working on. It's under the working title of Old Problems. And that's going to be larger photogrammic works. And this is not by me, this is by Laszlo. His name is very hard to pronounce. I think it's Molinashi, a well-known Bauhaus artist and most of his photogrammic works are from the 30s. So it's a bit inspired by him and by the sheer technique of making photograms and the similarity to painting and to sculptures. This is another artist who works with photograms. Her name is Marianne Robertson. She's a contemporary US artist. And she's made some really astonishing installations with photograms, with long rolls of paper that she's exposed and not cut, so they're like 20 meters long. I think for me it's both about the technique of the photogram and also about the possibility of abstracting very everyday-ish things like the newspaper page, and to look at that as a sheer shape or form, or as a sculpture. And in that sense, I think there are two good Norwegian works on the same thing, kind of. It's I don't know if you've seen Mathias Fallbakken's big screen printings that are the backsides of newspaper pages, and also Vibeke Tandberg's sorting out different letters and signs from newspapers, collecting all A's, all B's, all commas, and so on. That's kind of the same way of dealing with information in that kind of deadpan way, and still really interesting, I think. And yeah, that's this little image is, I think, a replica of the sculpture that Laszlo Molinashi, or whatever is pronounced, he made a sculpture that was reflecting light, and then he made a fantastic film out of that. It's called A Light Play, Black, Grey, White. And I would really like to get that film to Oslo, trying to see if and how that would be possible. It looks a little difficult, but it would be great to show somehow in conjunction with showing new, bigger photogrammic works. That too is available in little clips, but I think to see that film, which is it's really not very well depicted in a kind of low-res clip online, so that's why I really want to show it in Oslo. Yeah? You can ask questions or not, and thanks.
Where did you see this film? Where did you see this film?
I haven't seen it really. I've seen just clips and read. Yeah. That's why I want to get it here.
I think they were showing some of his works at last year.
They have it in Berlin.
Okay.
Ja, tusen takk.